Hi folks, I'm Olga and I'm glad that you joined me for the third episode of my online course on basic statistics. In the previous episode we started looking at the summary statistics and it was summary statistics that describes one variable, but in this episode we will again look at summary statistics describe one variable but very particular part of this summary statistics, and that's measures that describe how spread our data is. And as usually I will give you a couple of real-life examples to help you in understanding this concept. So let me start by simply listing the measures that I'm gonna talk about in detail later in this video. So these measures are range, quartile and percentile, interquartile range, variance, and standard deviation. Now let's look at them one by one. Range is the most intuitive and probably the easiest to comprehend statistics. We simply measure how far from each other are our maximum and minimum values. In other words, we simply subtract the minimum value from the maximum value of our data. The problem with this measure is that it's totally driven by extreme values in our data. And remember the example from previous episode where Bill Gates' wealth was so unusual compared to the wealth of all other people in the bar? Any data can have similar unusual observations called outliers. And in the case of range, these outliers will totally drive the value of range statistics. So interquartile range is a much more representative range measure in that sense. Basically, we take away 25% of the observations with the lowest values, and then we derive sort of new minimum at 25th percentile. We also get rid of 25% of the highest valued observations. Then this new maximum will be at 75th percentile. And interquartile range is the difference between these two new borders, 75th percentile minus 25th percentile. Quartile and percentile are as such values, and they are not the measures of spread as such, but interquartile range derived using percentiles. So what's percentile? If you are higher than 80% of people in your city or in your class, you are 80th percentile when height data is considered. First and lower quartile is 25th percentile. Then what is known to us already as median would be 50th percentile, and third or upper quartile is 75th percentile. Imagine that we have some data and we build a histogram for this data. Obviously, numerical values on the horizontal axis are from the lowest to the highest. Then we draw three splitting lines so that we divide our data in 4 blocks with 25% of observations in each block. And we immediately get our quartiles values from this operation. Let's look at variance and standard deviation now. Both measures show how far from the mean the data is spread. On your screen you see an example explaining how these measures are calculated. So if you have a set of numbers 1, 3, 4, 5 and 7, we can calculate their average, which is 4. Then, to get to the variance, for each out of 5 our observations, we calculate the deviation from the mean. As you see, the values of deviations are both below and above 0. If we just sum them up, we will get 0, as there is no deviation from the average in our data. And that's obviously not the case. So before calculating some kind of average deviation, we would square each deviation value. So variance is the average of squared deviations from the mean. And standard deviation is as simple as the square root of variance. Let me give you a couple of examples now to illustrate this theoretical concept. Look at 2 graphs on your screen. They are histograms showing weight for 2 different groups of people. One histogram for one group. Assume that means of 2 groups and the scale of the horizontal axis are equal. So what we'll notice then immediately is that the differences in weight within groups are different. Standard deviation and variation are smaller on the left-hand side picture. So my question would be, can you tell based on what you learned from this episode whether it's Helsinki city run participants or passengers of some random flight who constitute the group with smaller standard deviation? Well, the right answer is Helsinki city run participants. They are more homogeneous group. They are sportive people, while passengers of a random flight are much more heterogeneous, very different people. Thus, their weight data is much more spread around. Finally, let me give you one more example. You see the GMAT report of a very smart man from UK. What grounds do I have to tell that the guy is extremely smart? Well, his total score for the exam is 770, which is 99th percentile, and this suggests that he overperformed 99% of all previous test takers. Can you tell what percentage of test takers this guy overperformed in the verbal and quantitative parts of the test? I hope you can now. So let me end up here, and I want to go over and say that in this episode we looked at a few measures of spread. Now I hope that you have enough information to provide summary statistics for one variable at a time. And in the next episode I will talk about correlation, which is a summary statistics for 2 variables. Thanks for watching and good luck with your study in statistics.